Everyone is obsessed with what Miles Russell is doing in the gym right now. They see the sweat, the speed, the physical transformation. He's training like a prize fighter. And honestly, it's impressive. But while the world is watching Miles crush weights and chase ball speed, Charlie Woods is in a private facility in Florida doing something that most PGA Tour pros wouldn't last 10 minutes doing. He's not lifting, he's not sprinting, he's not trying to look like a superhero. He's doing the most boring, mind-numbing, brutal work in golf. And the scary part? It's working. Word leaked out of the Woods camp last week about a specific drill, a secret routine that Tiger apparently put him on to ensure he never feels pressure again. And once you hear what this drill actually is, you'll realize why Charlie doesn't look bothered by Miles Russell's transformation. He isn't worried about the speed, he's worried about the mistake. But before I pull the curtain back on the specific routine that's keeping Charlie ahead of the game, you need to understand why most young golfers are chasing the wrong thing entirely. Because Miles Russell is looking for a physical advantage. Charlie Woods is looking for something much, much harder to kill. Here's the problem with the current generation of young golfers. They're addicted to the data. They love TrackMan, they love the numbers, they love looking at their launch angle and their spin rate. They're chasing the perfect swing. And look, I get it. The data is real. It's measurable. It's hard to argue with a screen that tells you exactly how fast you're moving. But Miles Russell is doing exactly what I feared he would. He's chasing physical perfection. He's building an engine that could power a jet. Charlie Woods, he's building the pilot. And honestly, what he's doing is far more dangerous. The secret isn't a complex drill. It's actually the most miserable thing you can do on a golf course. It's called the sequence. And I'm going to tell you how it works in a second. But first, you have to remember how Tiger Woods actually won those majors in the early 2000s. Everyone talks about his power. Everyone talks about the intimidation. But go back and watch the tapes of him on the putting green at Pebble Beach in 2000. He wasn't hitting bombs. He was hitting the same 5-foot putt over and over for 2 hours. He wouldn't leave until he made 100 in a row, not 99, 100. If he missed at 99, he'd reset to 0. I remember watching a reporter ask him why he was doing that, and Tiger just looked at him and said, "Because on Sunday, I don't get to guess." That's the mindset. Now, Charlie's sequence drill is 10 times more intense than what Tiger was doing, just putting. But I'm not going to tell you the mechanics of it yet, because what this drill does to a teenager's brain after the first hour is where the real story is. Miles Russell is in the gym right now trying to get his deadlift up another 50 pounds. He thinks that power is the answer to the rivalry. Charlie Woods is in a bunker, hitting the same sand save from the same lie for 4 straight hours. He's not allowed to leave until he gets the ball within 3 feet of the pin. 10 times in a row. That's the sequence, it seems, is because he knows something about Miles that Miles doesn't even realize yet. He knows Miles is playing video game golf. Miles wants the big highlight, the eagle, the massive drive, the shot that makes the Instagram reel. Charlie? He's playing survival golf. He's conditioning his brain to handle the monotony of perfect execution. And here's the tension. Miles is getting faster. He's getting stronger. He's becoming a physical beast. But Charlie is becoming a machine that doesn't feel boredom. I talked to one of Charlie's training partners last week. He told me that after doing the sequence, Charlie doesn't even celebrate when he finishes. He just picks up his bag and walks to the car like he's leaving a shift at a factory. He's completely stripped the emotion out of his performance. And in 2 weeks, when they meet again at the Florida Invitational, that contrast is going to be the difference between winning and losing. Because while Miles shows up looking for a fight, Charlie is going to show up looking for a routine. And believe me, you can't beat someone who has trained themselves to be completely unbothered by the pressure. But the real question is, can Miles handle the mental reality of what he's about to face? Because he has no idea that Charlie has already beaten him. He just hasn't realized it yet. The range at the Florida Invitational was a tale of 2 different sports. Miles Russell was putting on a clinic. He was ripping drives that sounded like a gunshot. He was dialing in his wedges with a brutal, aggressive rhythm. Every swing was calculated to produce maximum speed. He looked like an athlete preparing for the NFL Combine. 20 yards away, Charlie Woods was hitting 6 irons. He wasn't tracking his speed. He wasn't filming his swing. He was just hitting balls to a specific target, then changing the target, then doing it again. It was monotonous. It was boring. But look, this is exactly what the sequence drill was designed to create. Charlie wasn't warming up his muscles. He was warming up his patience. When they teed off for the first round, the difference became clear within 3 holes. Miles played like he had a point to prove. He attacked every pin. He walked fast. He made big gestures after every good shot. He was feeding off the crowd. feeding off the energy, feeding off the idea that he could out-athlete Charlie Woods. Charlie? He didn't have an energy level. He was flat. And that flat line is the most dangerous thing you can encounter on a golf course. On the fifth hole, a long, tight par 4, Miles tried to force the issue. He had a 180-yard approach over water. Most guys take a safe iron to the middle of the green. Miles pulled a wedge. He tried to rip it, hoping to stick it within 5 feet. He caught it thin. The ball skidded across the green and into the back bunker. He scrambled for par, but he was visibly shaking after the shot. He was mad at himself. Charlie had 180 yards too. He pulled a 7-iron. Smooth swing landed it to 20 feet. 2 putted for par. Miles walked off that green and looked over at Charlie. He was expecting to see frustration. He was expecting to see that tiger-like temper. Nothing. Charlie just cleaned his club, grabbed his water, and moved to the next tee. And that's when Miles's strategy started to crack. Because Miles thought that by playing aggressive, he would put pressure on Charlie. He thought that if he showed he wasn't afraid to hit the hero shots, Charlie would have to step up and match him. But Charlie didn't care about the hero shots. He cared about the score. And that disconnect, Miles playing the crowd, Charlie playing the course, that's where the conflict turned lethal. By the time they reached the back 9, Miles was unraveling. Not because he was playing badly, he was actually shooting a great round, but because he was playing against his own expectations. He was losing the mental battle before he even hit the ball. I heard Miles mutter to his caddy on the 14th green, "Why won't he miss?" It wasn't a question, it was a plea. He was waiting for Charlie to sequence his way into a bogey. He was waiting for the wrist to hurt. He was waiting for the pressure of the Woods name to finally weigh him down. But the drill hadn't just prepared Charlie for the shots. It had prepared him for the waiting. He didn't care if Miles hit it close. He didn't care if the crowd cheered. He didn't care about the speed. He was just hitting the ball to the target. And as they headed into the final 4 holes, Miles Russell looked like he was about to explode. He had the speed, he had the strength, he had the gym work, but he didn't have the silence. And Charlie was playing the loudest silence I've ever seen on a golf course. But here's the kicker. On the 17th hole, something happened that shifted the rivalry forever. Something that made Miles realize he had been training for the wrong game entirely. Miles pulled driver on the 17th. It was a drivable par 4, but it was suicide. The pin was tucked behind a bunker, the wind was swirling, and the percentage play was a mid-iron to the fairway. His caddy looked at him, desperate. "Miles, take the iron. Just get it on the green in 2. Miles didn't listen. He was riding that speed training high. He wanted the highlight. He wanted the ego boost of driving the green while Charlie watched. He swung out of his shoes. The ball caught a gust, drifted right, and caught the lip of the bunker. It didn't even roll. It plugged. He was staring at a 40-yard bunker shot with a lip that was 6 feet high. Charlie? He hit a 7-iron to the center of the green, 2 putted for par, and walked off. Miles spent 5 minutes hacking out of that bunker. He finally got it out, missed the longer putt, and walked off with a double bogey. Let that sit for a moment. A double bogey on a drivable par 4. After 3 weeks of training like a machine, Miles Russell just handed the tournament to Charlie Woods on a silver platter, and that's the reveal. The reveal isn't that Miles is a bad golfer. He's incredible. He's probably the second best junior in the country. The reveal is that Miles is training for the wrong game. He's training for a game that doesn't exist. He's training for a game where who hits it furthest wins. He's training for a highlight reel. Charlie Woods is training for a game where the only thing that matters is the score at the end of the day. Miles realized it on that 17th green. He looked at Charlie walking to the 18th tee, calm, collected, no emotion. And he finally understood he wasn't fighting a guy. He was fighting a process. And he realized that if he doesn't change his entire mental approach, if he doesn't stop chasing the flash and start chasing the dull, boring perfection, he will never ever beat Charlie Woods. When you're in a rivalry like this, the first thing you lose is your game. The second thing you lose is your head. Miles had lost both. He walked to the 18th tee knowing the tournament was over. He didn't even look at Charlie. He just stared at the ground. And honestly, that walk to the 18th tee, that was the most painful thing I've ever seen in junior golf. Because he wasn't walking to the tee box to play a hole. He was walking to the tee box to accept that he'd been beaten by a process he didn't respect enough to learn. He thought the sequence was boring. He thought the practice rounds were a waste of time. He thought speed was the answer. And now he was looking at the scoreboard, realizing that the boring kid had just dismantled him without even hitting a hero shot. That's a hard reality to swallow. And the reveal isn't just about the score. It's about the fact that Miles Russell just got schooled on what it actually means to be a champion. Here's the thing about junior golf that nobody tells you. It eats people alive. Miles Russell is standing at a cliff right now. He can either keep running, keep chasing the speed, Keep trying to manufacture a game that isn't natural to him and burn out before he ever hits the PGA Tour. Or he can take a breath, admit that Charlie Woods has found a better process, and rebuild his own foundation. But that requires humility. And humility is the hardest thing to find when you're 17 and the whole world is watching your every move. Charlie Woods isn't playing with malice. He isn't out here to destroy Miles. He's just doing what he was built to do. But the emotional cost on Miles is real. He's carrying the weight of being the guy who lost to Tiger's kid, and every week that passes, that weight gets heavier. If Miles wants to survive this, he has to stop looking at Charlie as the enemy. He has to look at Charlie as the standard. Because right now, the standard has been raised. And if you aren't prepared to change with it, the game moves on without you. Here's my verdict. Miles Russell isn't losing because he lacks talent. He's losing because he lacks the one thing Charlie has in spades, the ability to let go of the result and trust the process. The hero shot era is over. The sequence era is here. So here's the question. Can Miles handle being the underdog again, or has he already let the pressure of this rivalry ruin his mental game for good? Drop your take below. And next, we're looking at the footage nobody else is analyzing. Charlie's wrist during the back nine. It's a miracle he was even able to hold the club. That's next.